Hard and you aiming for the seven figures. Hear from the experts who know how to deliver success stories, plenty advice. Time for you to rise. REI Tribe, yeah. Real estate agents to investors. All my entrepreneurs, time for you to check this. Yoann Dorat, he's getting it started, man. From running businesses to digital marketing. Hey, REI Tribe, REI Tribe. Let's go.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this new episode of the REI Tribe podcast, episode number 6. Today we have a very special guest, Antoine Martel. So Antoine has been doing a little bit of everything. You probably saw him on the, social media, from running a very big turnkey business in the Midwest to now helping a lot of students, run their first fix and flip. So Antoine, first of all, thank you for being here today.
Of course. Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here and connect with you again.
For sure. I'm sure you have a lot of value that we're going to drop today for the audience. So, man, let me ask you first, how did you get started into real estate?
Sure. So I started around 10 years ago. I went to a real estate seminar over a weekend. After that, I became addicted to real estate. I was in college still at the time. And I just moved all my classes from 5 to 10 p.m. in college, and then I had 9 to 5 essentially to work on this real estate business or test investing in real estate. I was going to school in LA at the time, so it was very expensive to invest locally. Started going to networking events, meetups, seeing what the hell people were doing, and realized that everybody was investing locally and they were having a really, really difficult time. The people that were investing out of state, which was few and far between at that point in time, I would go to networking events and be the only person investing out of state. It was crazy.
So have you started your career in California first, and then you transition to, start to look out of state, or right out of the gate, you're like, oh, California is already too expensive for me. There's no money to be made here.
Yeah. So I tried to invest in California for probably about 6 months, and I was asking the people how they were doing it, running the numbers, everything looked okay. But then you would start making offers and you would lose out on every single deal because other people had, cash. They had $2 million sitting in the bank. My dad and I had $40,000. So we didn't have enough money to get into a deal in California. If we did, we had to raise all this private money. So that didn't make much sense. So we actually ended up investing in the Midwest after a 2-year period of just pure learning and networking and trying 100 different things. We eventually bought our first deal in Memphis, Tennessee for $40,000 and did a BRRRR on that one. So we bought it, renovated it, rented it out, and then refinanced it. And then after that, just slowly kept building up the family portfolio until we started selling houses to friends and family members out of that portfolio to get some cash back to keep growing the portfolio, which is what started Martel Turnkey. And then I ran Martel Turnkey for the last, 8 or so years. Well, I'm still running Martel Turnkey, but 8 or so years with Martel Turnkey. And then more recently, started Flip System about 12, 16 months ago to help other people get into the fix and flip game, because, the last 8 years I've been selling a product, which was a turnkey single family home. And people for the last 8 years have been asking me, how can I do it myself? I don't want to buy a finished product. And now I finally have that with Flip System to help people do their own deals, and, with my teams on the ground and property managers, realtors, contractors, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, very interesting. So let me just rewind a little bit on your earlier days. You told me that you basically started to look at properties in the Midwest first of all because of lack of capital. You had $40,000 to invest, so you couldn't go very far in California. The Midwest, your first market was Memphis. Back then, what was the average price for a house?
Back then, the average price in these neighborhoods that we were investing in was around $70,000. So
okay,
we buy them for 20 to 50K, renovate them, and sell them for 70, 80,000.
Okay. How much would you say the similar kind of house would be worth today in the Memphis market?
That same exact house in that same exact neighborhood is worth double. It's worth 140 today. Crazy.
Okay. All right. And I imagine back in the day in California, when you started to look, into the Midwest, people were probably like, oh, don't go in these kind of cities, don't go in this kind of neighborhood. It's going to be tough to, there will be no appreciation. And like you're the living proof a few years later that, your portfolio is worth way more than what you bought it for. So, which brings me to my next question. Do you feel to this day, like for people investing right now in the Midwest, in Memphis, but there is other market, we're going to talk probably about, Cleveland in Ohio or Detroit in Michigan. Do you think people entering the market now at a lower price point are still going to get an upside, 5, 6, 7 years from now?
100%. Memphis is a little bit more expensive. We've actually slowed down a lot in Memphis. Cleveland, Ohio has gotten very expensive recently as well. So, as there's it almost seems like these markets go through different stages, right? So there's markets that are kind of underpriced and then they get a lot of attention, or they have a ton of growth, or they have population growth, or whatever, just due to inflation, lack of inventory, which is what we've seen the last couple of years. Almost all ships, all cities have kind of risen in terms of property values, except for a few that like Austin, Texas, and, super, super hot markets that have kind of crashed due to high interest rates. But I'm just talking about the Midwest. I feel like a lot of markets have risen. There is still a ton of opportunities, and there's always going to be new markets that are going to be coming up that are going to be the new Memphis and the new Nashville. And my goal and what I love doing is finding out what that next place is going to be. So, for example, this week we were talking to a team in Buffalo, New York, which is in New York. I'm not so keen on investing in New York State, but it is Buffalo. It's, there is some really, really cheap inventory. There's also Youngstown, Ohio, which, is a pretty rough city, but who knows if that's going to be a diamond in the rough. Some big developer could come, rebuild the whole entire downtown corridor and turn it into something amazing. And
so what are you looking for when you look into, you do this market research for where is going to be the next gem? What are you looking for really?
Yeah, the big thing is I look at the median home price. So the median home price and the median rent to kind of see what the rent to value ratios are. That's my main indicator. In a Cleveland, Ohio, a $150,000 house and $1,300 in rent, that's pretty damn good. And then you go to a Detroit where it's a $70,000 house with $1,000 a month rent. It's oh my God, that's crazy. It's even better. That's kind of where I begin. And then it's a lot of finding people on the ground that can do the work, property management, construction, realtors. And then, can I convince somebody to buy this property on the back end? So can I do enough marketing, or do the returns speak for themselves where I can actually sell or offload this inventory if I need to?
For sure. So, I just want to, go back on the entry level of houses in those different markets because, the audience might listen to you and think about the houses that you bought back in the day in Memphis for $20K and spending 20, 30K in a rehab. And today it's worth 200. What is a realistic price in those markets today to buy a house in a good neighborhood? Because I feel like sometimes, especially in market like Detroit, if you go really on the cheap inventory, you're going to end up in, Class D neighborhood with a lot of issues. So how do you select the neighborhood, and what kind of realistic price range can we expect in those neighborhoods?
Yeah. So for a nice neighborhood, which is for me, a B class neighborhood, it's not a war zone. It's also not a C class neighborhood, which is mostly blue collar or a little bit rougher with higher crime. So that B class neighborhood across all of my markets is probably $100,000 to $140,000 kind of range ARV. So that means you can buy them. You can buy them for anything from $10,000 to $100,000 and renovate them for $20K all the way up to $80,000 depending on it, right? So that's kind of the sweet spot that I'm seeing right now. That 100 to 150 kind of ARV range is going to be a good neighborhood.
Okay. And what can we expect as far as the rent? Do you have a minimum of, let's say, $1,000 per month, or is it less than that?
Yeah, good question. More recently, in the last 12 months, definitely all the houses I've been doing have been at least $1,000. When you get to apartments, it gets a little bit different. But yeah, every single house I've done recently has been $1,000 a month, bare minimum. If it's below that, that can also indicate, if you have a house in Memphis for $700 a month, I guarantee you that's in a rough part of town, because any good house in Memphis is going to rent out for at least $1,000. 5 years ago, you can have a B-class neighborhood home for $800 a month, but now it's well over $1,000.
Okay, so I think that's a key point for anyone in Florida, for example, that might be listening to us today, and heard about houses for $10,000 in Detroit or $20,000 in Cleveland. It existed back in the day, it still exists to this day, but those kind of houses you don't want to get into it because they're going to be in very rough neighborhood, or the amount of repairs that you would need to do in order to bring this house back to the market is going to be much more than the retail value of the house, right?
Yep, 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people here in Miami too. I went to some networking events the last couple of months. A lot of people are investing locally. I feel like that's the same thing as when I was in LA. Like, people are just so keen on investing locally, and I'm like, man, I'm the only guy in the room that's doing out-of-state stuff. It's crazy. Well, me and you, I guess, the only two people looking at out-of-state deals. So.
Well, a few times I've been looking back at reinvesting here in South Florida, and I mean, I've done some deals here, but nothing that I felt like was a good addition to my portfolio. So I ended up either wholesaling it or flipping it. Because let's be honest, for exactly the same kind of house in the same kind of neighborhood, you have a price range here that is going to be more in the 350 to 500,000. Really, a house that is really in the hood here in West Palm Beach is already going to be 200,000. So it just doesn't make any sense because the rent is not going to be that high. So your cap rate is going to be very low with the current interest rate, and you already end up with a negative cash flow. So. I don't see any interest at all.
I was going to say, like, that's also like one of the things that I mentioned, like how I try to find like those neighborhoods that are increasing or that are like kind of like hidden gems. It's like, where can I find that house you just talked about? Where can I find in a different city in America, any city in America, that B-class, stable, nice neighborhood house for $100,000? Like, that's what the goal is like finding those. And you can, if you fly around to all these different markets in the Midwest, you're like, wow, the same house in Cleveland is 180. It's, $95K in Detroit, and it's, 150 in Memphis, and it's 300K in Miami for the same exact house and neighborhood, a neighborhood that you and I would be okay living in. That's what's so interesting to me is like all these different markets, the price variance for all these different, it's like, doesn't make sense. I'm just going to buy the house that makes me the best return, that makes me a positive cash flow, because it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your take on, when people are saying like, oh, don't invest in the Midwest because, people are kind of like moving away from the Midwest to come more in the Southeast. So you have like, they're losing population every year basically. So, a lot of people are thinking the Midwest is great for cash flow, but then you won't get any appreciation. What's your feedback on that for having invested in those markets for years now?
Yeah, so what I did was I looked at the data for the last 30 years in all of my markets, and I came up with the average appreciation for all of those markets for the last 30 years. It's anything from 1% per year all the way up to like 4% per year, depending on the city. If you look at the last 10 years of data, the appreciation is more like 8 to 10%. So, it was a slow appreciation, and then more recently it's been skyrocketing. Who knows where we're going to go from here, but that's just what the data tells me. Now, obviously, everybody wants to move to, or people that can afford it want to move to a lower climate. Everybody wants to move to Florida or South Florida because of the weather and the no state income tax, all that kind of stuff. But who knows what the hell is going to happen? And you're seeing it with Miami. Like, look how expensive it is here now. Like, I have friends in LA that are like, whoa, where you live is like 2 times the price of what I pay in LA. And I'm like, yeah, but it's walkable. There's no tax. Like, I have to like do a sales pitch. Eventually, it's not going to make sense for people to move to Texas and to Florida anymore. My question is, where are they going to go next? Or are they going to move at all? Or are some people, because they get priced out of Miami, are they going to move back to Detroit because they can start that bar or restaurant or barbershop that they always wanted to start? And it's young and hip and vibrant, and that's kind of my thoughts. Everybody goes to New York City and goes to Chicago, and those are 2 places that also have very similar weather that's cold, and they have all the seasons, all that kind of stuff. So I think the goal of those cities is to make it attractive enough to, bring people in, while also having that price where the only thing they have to debate about is like they have to have a winter and have a bad weather for a few months out of the year. So those are my thoughts. I think obviously the people that can afford it are going to move to the warmer climates, which is fantastic. Eventually, what's going to happen when people get priced out? Where are they going to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally join you on this. Like I always think, obviously everybody, when they can afford it, wants to go, where the sun is, and it's a great lifestyle here. We're living it, so we're not going to say the opposite. But in the same time, if you look at what happened since COVID, yes, you had like a lot of people from the Midwest coming down to Florida, but you also had a lot of Floridians moving out of Florida because they became like priced out, especially here in South Florida. So when people are saying, the house that you buy in Detroit might be worth nothing in a few years because no one wants to live here anymore, I don't have like magic crystal ball. I can't know what is going to happen 30 years from now because maybe people being priced out and moving back there could be, all the flooding and things like that we see here in Florida. We have no way to know what is going to happen. Now, I've seen a lot of what you were saying about Detroit. Like I had an example here in Parkland, someone that I knew that, was living here in Florida and is actually moving to Detroit just because he feels like he has way more opportunities in the Midwest. Obviously, the cost of life is way lower. He's in real estate. He sees the city coming back. So the opportunities that you can have in a city like Detroit is totally different than a market like obviously here in South Florida where it's very competitive and you have some already very established players. So yeah, I think it's really the opportunity too.
I agree. Yeah, and like I'm just thinking about like, what's so weird about Miami is that there's no like, what's the main industry in Miami? Like, I don't freaking know. Crypto, tourism, like who knows? So like eventually I don't know, like everybody here that I meet in my building or that I have a lunch with or dinner with, they all do some weird thing, have an online remote job. What happens when they get called back into work and they have to go to the Northeast again? They have to go back to New York City. They're like, screw that. I get paid $100,000 a year to go to New York, or I can go to Detroit for $90,000 a year, right? And like the Detroit cost of living is a tenth of the cost. And so I think that's what's if offices do come back and people go back into working from the offices, it's going to be so interesting to see what happens. I just think my thing is like, people are always going to need a place to live. People are always going to want to live in Detroit. How many people are going to want to live there? I have no idea, but I think the population is going to keep growing. I don't think that we're going to be a declining human race anytime soon. I think there's going to be more and more people that want to come in America. And if there's room in Detroit, I think people are going to move there for whatever the case may be. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because over the years, I think I started to work in Detroit back in 2015. And back then, everybody was kind of scared of the city because of the reputation and, everything that you can see in like newspaper and everything. But we've both been there so many times, and like the downtown area is very nice. You have some very nice, restaurants, hotel. It's a very nice city.
So
it's
nice.
Some place really look like what you could find in some areas of New York or Chicago. But people don't really see it. So I think that's really what is working against, Detroit and the Midwest in general is this reputation of, it's only ghost town up there. There's a lot of violence and stuff. But once people get there, that back in the day, I had a lot of like people from Europe traveling to Detroit to come see some houses.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a single person that came and spent a few days with me that came back to Europe saying negative things about Detroit. They all love the city because once you really experienced it, it's totally different. But I guess you have to kind of break those false beliefs that people have sometimes.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's going to take a long time. They have a lot of marketing to do. Like we were just talking about this a couple of days ago about LA, Los Angeles. We were out here in Miami Beach swimming at 8 p.m. and it was still like hot outside and the water was warm. And my girlfriend was like, this is what I thought LA was going to be like. She came from Toronto to LA, and like it's a big marketing pitch, right? Yeah. And come to Hollywood. If you go to Hollywood, it's disgusting. I'd rather be downtown Detroit than be in Hollywood. It's horrible. It's homeless everywhere. It's dirt. There's pee everywhere on every street corner. It's the worst. And then you go to Detroit and you're like, am I in Chicago? Like, they have Greektown. They have like all these cool things, all new restaurants, super, super high-end French 5-star restaurants as well. It was crazy to see. So yeah, I think it's just like a whole marketing ploy, a whole marketing campaign that the city has to kind of go ahead and start doing. And it's going to take a hell of a long time to change around the narrative, but it's good for us. We have plenty of time to go buy all the houses and renovate them for the huge influx of people that are going to come.
Absolutely. So talking about marketing, like if I understand correctly, back in the day, you started to, build your portfolio. And then at some point you realize, building, my balance sheet is great, but I need to get some capital back in order to grow this portfolio. So that's how you ended up in flipping houses. But you chose this turnkey model. So first of all, why the turnkey model? And then explain to us a little bit more about how did you find investors that were interested in buying those houses in Detroit or Memphis and Cleveland, knowing that they probably had exactly the same false belief. They probably heard all those things from LA about Detroit. So how did you kind of like handle those objections?
Yeah, great question. So turnkey model, many reasons why I like it. And turnkey model too is when you buy the house, renovate it, rent it out, put a property management company in place, and then you sell it to somebody like all together, and you're like, hey, here you go. Here's a house that's already cash flowing, making money. Just buy it with this lender and start making money tomorrow. So that's the turnkey model. The reason why I liked it is because I had so many exits. I could buy the house, renovate it, and sell it as a retail fix and flip. I could buy the house, renovate it, rent it, sell it as a turnkey fix and flip. If the house doesn't sell in a couple months, I just refinance it, pull my money out, leave a little bit of money in the deal. I cash flow every month. I can even still market it. Nobody needs to know that I refinance it. I can still market the house for the next 25 years and be like, as long as somebody's willing to pay my price, I'll sell you the house, right? So Nothing really changes. That's what I like about the turnkey model. How did I find the buyers to buy it? A lot of social media and a lot of marketing within. So I'm like, okay, cool. I have these houses in Cleveland now. What can the city of Cleveland's not going to be like, yeah, this is the best place to move to ever. And they're not going to spend their marketing dollars on that. So I had to, from the real estate perspective, sell Cleveland and Memphis and St. Louis and Detroit and all these cities over the last 10 years on social media. So I started posting a ton of content. Even when I first started, before even doing a deal, that 2-year kind of learning period, I posted content every couple of days. Hopefully, I was trying to do it every single day, but every couple of days around like what I was learning, what I was doing, what I was testing, why it wasn't working, why it was working, so people could kind of follow along with the journey. Eventually, I became like a figure in the space where people would actually listen to what I had to say about this market, why I like it, why I don't like it, all that kind of stuff. So it was essentially just like creating my own buyer network through my social media. People would come to my page, follow me for a couple months, and then eventually buy a house from me on my website.
So it was really just about like documenting really your journey. Like you would just go on with your day, flipping houses in the Midwest, walking some properties and like documenting on social media whatever you were doing. And because people would be able to like see the real you and really relate to what you were doing, you kind of like became an authority in the space. And now a few months or a few years later, they would come back and buy houses from you.
Exactly. And now we do a lot of like paid social media marketing too. So we'll run ads. We'll also like boost posts. I don't know if this is like, I started boosting posts like a month ago. I've got like 10,000 followers in the last month from like boosting posts, which hasn't worked for me for like 10 years, but I don't know. Here we are today and it's finally working. So yeah, there's that kind of organic social media. And then now we're moving towards like also organic posting every single day still after 10 years. And then a lot of paid media too. Like, hey, buy turnkey rentals or buy flip system, get flip system, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it goes to the quality of the content that you're posting, because where most people get it wrong when they run ads, they want something very graphic with a lot of like flashy icons and everything. And that's not what the audience on social media wants to see, because if you think about it, they're looking for like news from their friend. They're just scrolling down the feed. They want to see something that seems as natural, something that one of their friends could post. And I remember seeing some of your videos, and it's really like you recording with your iPhone, walking in the street and commenting whatever you're doing. So it really looks like something that one of your friends would do. And I think that's why you're having success with those ads. It's really the way you're supposed to do it.
Appreciate it. I definitely agree. All the high quality, super high quality stuff. I was paying like $10,000 a month for somebody to come and film the super high end stuff. Now I literally just record my Flip System weekly coaching calls, and I like have a camera right next to me, just recording. When I want to say something, I just click record and say it. Uploads to a drive, somebody edits it, and then it gets posted next month. So yeah, don't focus, for people listening that want to get into content creation, literally just pick your bloody phone up, start filming. You don't need any subtitles, you don't need any hashtags, just get posting to build up that audience and post as many times as you can per day. Yeah,
it's really about quantity, right? I think it's Gary Vee that was saying, like, doesn't really matter. There's going to be some posts that are a total flop, but it doesn't really matter. Just keep posting and posting. The more content you post, really, the better success you're going to get. And I mean, I get that. There was a video a few days ago that someone sent me where you could see, Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and all those guys, the first videos that they posted back in the day. And the quality was awful, but it didn't stop them. They kept posting, and month after month it improved, and look at where those guys are today. So do you think that, I mean, obviously I already know the answer, but for the audience, do you feel that being very consistent on your social media and building this brand is really what helped you, build your business and scale it to this level?
1,000,000%. I think consistency is the biggest thing. Obviously, there's going to be months where you have a couple posts go out and you're like, oh shit, I really have to get back on it, because you do have to spend time and attention on it if you want to be consistent with it. So I think figuring out a process, getting something like Hootsuite to manage all your posts and all that kind of stuff at the beginning. I still even sometimes use Hootsuite right now. And you can find a social media manager pretty cheap. If you don't have the money to do it, just literally put in your calendar and be post a video, and just have just do one a day at least. A lot of people are now even just doing the news thing where they have something with the news in the background and they're like, this is the news of today. You could literally do that. And if somebody made stuff for real estate news in the Midwest about new buildings coming up, company, I would follow it. Nobody's doing that. And I would love to see so whatever. I say that to say there's a million different things you can do, but it has to be consistent, or else if I go to follow your account and you have 3 posts and they're all 3 months apart, I'm like, okay, this is useless. I only want to follow somebody who's going to give me a consistent stream of new stuff that I can consume. So yeah, being consistent is definitely key. And it also, I think, helps the algorithm. It helps boost your content more if you have thousands of posts in there that all have some engagement that people like. You also get to know information about your consumer who's actually watching the footage and what they like, because you can test out different things. Oh, when I talk about real estate agents, which is what I noticed, when I talk about real estate agents or talk to them in a video, the video blows up. So it's telling me I have a lot of realtors that follow me. So just testing out those different things and monitoring it is what has really helped.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think I heard something like that from, I think it was Ryan Pineda, who was saying that, testing different topics until you find really what your audience stick to. And in his case, I think it was something very random, he was talking about flipping couch and things, something like that.
Yeah.
The audience really stick to it. So he ended up doing a series of video about that. And they all just blew up because no one was talking about this topic. And it seemed like his audience was really interested into it.
Yeah.
So that's really a key point here. But I think as well, we all have this kind of imposter syndrome at the beginning. And I think what is interesting about your journey is that even when you were just getting started and you didn't add all the experience that you have today, you were still recording some content. So, people have a tendency to forget sometimes you're not going to compete with Pace Morby, Ryan Pineda, Grant Cardone, all those guys, because they're addressing a completely different segment of the audience. The people that you're really addressing to is the people that were in your that you were in their position 2 years ago. So it's basically the younger self that you address every time. So that's probably what it is in your case. I assume that the people that you were addressing when you were doing your first flips were people that were probably doing their first flip or were just looking to get into flipping houses but didn't start it yet.
Yeah, as long as you're consistent with it, and you have to be super transparent when you post on social media. Be like, I've never done a house flip before, like literally in your bio. I've never flipped a house, but I'm trying, ... And I post every day. It's like, cool. I know exactly what this page is going to be about. And that also goes back to like your point about like you have to have some sort of depth. I think Alex Hormozy talked about it as well. Like if you go to Alex Hormozy's page and all he posted about was was buying businesses with acquisition.com, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's boring. But no, but he has a wife who he talks about a lot. He likes going to the gym. He likes buying businesses, and he has some weird things that he does on his downtime, like, chewing a pack of gum a day, right? So like those are the 4 or 5 things that we know about it. And then like he circles back and forth the content between all those different topics. So I think it's interesting too when you're just starting out, literally I think that's one of the biggest things. What do I talk about? It's like literally, what did you do today? Like I went to work and I didn't have time to do anything. I probably should. Oh my God. How can I really anybody have any tips around doing X, Y, Z? It's like, just literally post stuff like that at the beginning just to see, because you can have like a really intimate relationship with your followers when you first start, and like DM people back and forth and all that good stuff to get feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another thing. People focus sometimes on how many followers you have, but I read one time someone saying like, I would rather have just 2,000 followers, but 2,000 followers that are really true fans. Because if you have people that are really true fans and buy every single one of the product that you launch, then you don't need to have millions of followers. So I think the engagement that you get on your post and the relationship that you build with your audience is very important as well.
100%. I completely agree. Yeah, you look at Grant Cardone, he has, I don't know how many millions of followers, but I think a lot of those people are also in different countries. So like anybody can go, I can go have 1 million followers. I can pay, $50,000 to get a 1 million followers in India, but it's not going to be any benefit to me. So yeah, just be careful with the whole number, looking at the numbers, because it's just completely, I think 75 or 70% of my followers are US based. So it's like, I would love to see Grant Cardone's or one of these other big guys where it's like, 15% of their followers are US based. It'd be so
and what's funny now, it's that since you can buy the little blue check, like everything is certified. Everybody is verified now, and you see like people with like millions of followers, but then there is like 10 likes on every post. So it's it's interesting. All right, let's get back to your real estate journey. So you started, building this turnkey business. You went very, very high on scale. Like how many flips have you completed in the last few years?
Yeah, we did close to 1,000 in the last 8 years, and our biggest month we were doing like 50 houses a month.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so we got pretty big, got pretty scaled up. And that was around like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that we started doing like 50 deals a month.
Okay. And so for people to understand a little bit more, how you're structured today. So your company is present in different markets. So you have a variety of different markets and different options, which allows your client to be diversified. They can buy a house in Memphis, one in Detroit, one in Cleveland. I assume depending on the market condition, because as you say, Memphis right now is a little bit hot, but they have this possibility to diversify. How did you build your team? Because I assume that you need a strong team of boots on the ground in every one of those markets, because you're in Miami. Those markets are pretty far apart. So explain to us a little bit more about, the team boots on the ground component in every market.
Yeah. So the teams on the ground consists of a couple people. One, property manager. Second is the realtor. And the third is kind of like a project manager. I already didn't say contractor. So realtor, property manager, and project manager. So that's one of the biggest things is I don't manage the contractors from afar. It would be completely impossible to do so. So I find a realtor that's investor friendly that can help me find deals, find a property manager / project manager that can help me manage the houses when they're done, lease them out, and then hopefully also handle the construction side of things.
Okay. So you were talking about a realtor to find the deal. Does that mean that all the deals that you find are on market, or do you buy from wholesalers as well and auction, like different source?
About 70% of the deals that I've ever done have been MLS. And I think for people listening that are just getting into it, they want to do something that's super clean and easy, I would probably recommend doing the MLS, unless you have like a super reputable wholesaler that has, you can make sure they're direct to seller, all that kind of stuff. But I always recommend when people first get started just to find MLS deals.
That's very interesting because, coming from like the off-market side and the wholesaling side, I hear every day like, hey, you can't find deals on the MLS. There's nothing to be found there. But you've been able to flip hundreds of, almost 1,000 properties, and mostly on the MLS. So that's the proof that it's still doable, right?
There is. People just give up too early. So like I think there's just so much content from a lot of wholesalers or people that are doing deals on the coast, right? Like in Florida, there's nothing on the MLS. Sure. I'm sure that you can find some deals off market. I'm sure that if you made 100 offers on the MLS, you'd find some deals, right? So it's just the MLS is just such a big open space that just a lot of people don't have the patience, they don't have the scale, they don't have the systems to be able to like make 100 offers a day. But hell, if you like can make an offer on every single new listing a day on the MLS, you could probably get like, in one market, you could probably get 5 deals under contract a day. It's just you don't have the bandwidth or the manpower or the right team to be able to do that. So then people are like, oh, it doesn't work. And then they go to wholesalers. So you can definitely find deals on the MLS. Even with Flip System, I don't let them buy houses. I don't want them to buy houses from wholesalers for their first couple. I want them to go through, work with a realtor, somebody that has a license that's professional or more professional, and really like do it the right way for their first deal. Is it going to take a little bit longer? Yes. And it's going to take making 5 or 10 offers? Yes. But I think it's going to be a hell of a lot safer using a realtor on the MLS than a wholesaler for your first deal.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it really gets back to consistency. And I think doesn't matter what you do. I talk to a lot of wholesalers every day, and it's the same thing when people are telling me, "Oh, I've done cold calling, it's not working." Okay, how many phone calls did you make? Oh, I called 100 people. Well, try to call 1,000 and then come back to me and tell me if it's working or not. It's the same thing on the MLS. I assume if you have enough conversation every day and you build a rapport with those agents, and you really run comps every day and make offers, you're going to end up finding a deal. It's just that people don't really, are not ready to commit and do whatever it takes. Really.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you have to be completely addicted. So for me, when I went to that real estate seminar, I was like, all right, cool, real estate's it. I'm addicted now. Let's go. And I was like, even some people that do their first fix and flip, they're like, man, that didn't go as planned. Okay, I'm going to do Airbnbs now. Oh, that didn't go as planned. I tried it for a month or a week. That didn't go as planned. I'm going to do wholesaling now. Man, this is hard. Yoann, you told me I could make 10 calls and get a house under contract. Like, I've made 10 calls. They just shiny light syndrome too. So it's like you're never going to get good at something or get wealthy from something if you keep jumping to the next shiny light. So that's also something I preach all the time. Just like stick with it. Everything's going to be okay. Don't go off track. Just do the same simple thing over and over and over again if you want to get wealthy.
Absolutely. So your turnkey company is called Martel Turnkey, and for people to understand, you work with your family, right? It's a family company. You have your dad, and I think your brother and your mom working with you as well.
Yep, correct. Yeah, my dad, myself, my brother, and my mom all work at Martel Turnkey, and now at Flip System as well.
Okay, so man, talk to me a little bit about how it is to work with family, because I know that it's complicated. I come from a family business as well in France, right. And I actually ended up jumping in an airplane and moving very far away because it wasn't for me. But I mean, I find that beautiful when people get it to work. But yeah, explain to us a little bit how it is like working with family on a daily basis, and if you have any advice for people who would want to, start getting in business with their family?
Yeah, great question. So I don't know. I've never known anything outside of a family business, so it's hard for me to kind of relate, but I can definitely see, I've never had a real job or anything like that. So it's hard for me to be like, oh, this is what a job feels like. So for us, it works pretty well. Obviously, like any kind of business relationship or partner relationship or business owner, there's going to be challenges and struggles and people not feeling heard or wanted or feel like they're doing enough, that kind of thing. But I think one of the great things about working with family is that you always know you have each other's backs, and they're not going to try to screw you over and run away or steal all your money. So like them having total complete control over the bank account. Cool. Now we can have like 4 people that have complete control of the bank account instead of one guy or myself, right? If I had other business partners. So I think that's one of the things is just like you have that inherent trust. And yeah, I'm not saying that family can screw you over either. They certainly have. I've seen it firsthand with, some people that I know that got screwed over by their family members. But at least for us, that hasn't happened. And we've been proving to each other that we're faithful to the relationship and to the business for the last 10 years. And so I think that's one of the things you just can't take away and you can't recreate somewhere else. And then I guess some of the cons is that when you go on a family vacation, it's like we're going to south of France actually this Sunday.
Okay.
But it's like there's no downtime, dude. So you have like
disconnect, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's always online, which I kind of prefer. I'm not very good at downtime or anything like that, but yeah, it's completely different. Now you go on vacation with your family, all you talk about is business, but I mean, that's my favorite subject. So
yeah,
it works well for me.
I think this whole like work-life balance is complete bullshit. Honestly, I think when you have this entrepreneur mindset, you're always working. I go to vacation to beautiful places. Honestly, after 2-3 days, I'm like, my mind starts to work again. I take my notebook with me. I start to, highlight some stuff, and then I just want to get back home and get back to work. So,
I know.
I think that's how we're built, and you can't really help it. But yeah, this family business thing, it's powerful, man. I really love it. And so just to highlight what you were saying, basically, you want to make sure that you have a proper accountability chart in place because you don't want to kind of like step on each other's toes. So everybody has a very specific role within the company, and they're fully accountable for that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and also like Flip System is like 30 people now. We have 30 employees, so like we can't play favorites either. So like for example, my brother's on the sales team. If he has a couple bad months and he needs to be kicked off the sales team, it's like, cool, kick him off the sales team. Like, we can't play favorites or else it ruins the entire relationship with everybody else on the team too. So like, yeah, it's
great. That would be interesting for the family dinner if your brother get kicked off.
Yeah, just an example. It hasn't happened, but yeah, it's interesting because when it's a small family business and it's just like you and a couple of other people, who cares? Like, family's going to be good no matter what happens. But when you really grow the company and you have departments and, you have a director of sales, director of technology, and somebody in the family works for that person because they're super knowledgeable, they have 30 years of experience. It's like, yeah, you don't pull your weight. You need to find a replacement to protect the business because the business always comes first. And the business is nobody's. The business is a separate entity. Yeah, so it's not like I own the business. And so that's kind of my thing. It's like its own living, breathing human. We have to keep it alive at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's transition a little bit from we touch point about your early day in real estate, building your portfolio, to transitioning to building this turnkey company, Martel Turnkey, and starting to really massively flipping at scale houses on the turnkey model, over 1,000 houses. And then in the last 12 months, you've been really like transitioning. You're still flipping houses. You're still actively doing real estate, but you've been transitioning to this new offer, that is Flip System. So can you tell us a little bit more about Flip System?
Sure. Of course. So what I realized when I was doing 50 houses a month with Martel Turnkey is that I had hit the maximum point of a turnkey fix and flip business. What I mean by that is I was making more money flipping 5 houses a month myself with me, my dad, my brother, and my mom than the company was at 50 houses, because when you have 50 houses a month, you have to have multiple internal project managers, a whole entire sales team, acquisition people, transaction coordinators. Like, we were making pretty much the same amount of money for 50 houses versus like 5 to 10 houses a month with way less stress, way less financing. Oh, that's the other thing too. You have to have like huge lines of credit to do 50 houses a month. So with that, I realized that there had to be some sort of change. This is also when the interest rates were kind of flying up as well. So our business was getting hurt. We're kind of getting pinched from all angles with the interest rates. And I was like, I had for the last 3 years been like mentoring people one-on-one to get into their own deals. And it had a really, really low success rate. People were like spending all this money with me for one-on-one weekly calls. Like I was charging like $3,000 a month, and people were not having good success because it was just advice. And I realized like 10%, 15% of the people that actually went through that one-on-one mentorship actually had success and got into a deal. I was like, this is bullshit. Why am I charging all this money? People are not even having success. How can I make them have success? And I read Alex Hormozy's book, and Alex Hormozy's book, $100 Million Offers, which was amazing. And I was like, man, can I take everything that I have with Martel Turnkey, what I just learned, everything that I learned from this mentorship that I've been running for the last couple of years, and create a new offer? And I was like, well, what if somebody paid me $50,000, what would I give to them? And I was like, shit, I would give them the first out, like, here's a deal on a silver platter. Here's a property management company, realtor, contractor that I would use to renovate it. And then here's my system that I built to be able to manage 50 plus homes a month. I was like, well, if somebody would pay me 50 grand, I would give them these three things. And, just kept going down there, posted it on social media, like, hey, I want to help you get into your first deal. I'll give you my team on the ground and help you find your first deal with my acquisition team, all this kind of stuff. And it worked. I sold somebody, on that flip system back then. And then from there, it was like the light bulb kind of went off, and I was like, okay, cool. This can actually be something that I can, kind of mass market. My girlfriend started doing sales calls. I started running ads and just like really started testing it out and blowing it up. And it's been working fantastic. We have successfully reversed the success rate. So now like 95% of the people that join Flip System get into their first deal within like 30, 45 days. So it's been a completely reverse of the past mentorship. Things have been working well. We have like weekly coaching calls. We have a community as well, which also was part of my last mentorship. So they get to ask questions 24/7, connect them to a team on the ground, acquisition team, and give them a whole custom software they can use to analyze deals from the MLS and make offers and track the deal throughout.
Okay, so you're saying that on your first mentorship, basically, most people, even though like you were having conversation one-on-one and all of that, the percentage of people already taking action was very low. So the way for you to kind of like reverse that was to do more like I'm going to hold your hand and get you through your first deal kind of approach. So now you're using everything that you were using internally in your own company. So your team that was bringing you deals, but I assume since you had this big scale, you had a consistent flow of leads coming in, even more than you were actually able to close yourself, because at some point, you're kind of capped. And so now, because you have this infrastructure that you build for yourself, you can get other people to actually benefit from that. But instead of being just advice, you really hold their hand and walk them through the entire process.
Exactly. And it wasn't just like, so the people that I had the one-on-ones with, they would take action, but then they would like do it wrong. They would like build their team incorrectly, where they're like, Antoine, I called 10 people on Yelp and I found a GC. It's like, no, I don't want you managing a GC. We need to find a team. And then they would do it for like 2 weeks. And then they would come back to the weekly call and be like, all right, I called 20 people. Like, I'm like, you should call 200. Like, why did you stop at 20? Why did you stop at 20? So it was like, they were taking action, but I just saw like, this is going to take 6 months for this person, this man or woman, to like get anything done at this rate, right? And they were spending $3,000 a month. So I was like, holy shit, this is going to be a lot of money they're going to have to spend to like get into this first deal. It's like, how can I make this all super, super short and connect them to the team that's set up, done for you, already ready to go. All you need to do is an email introduction. We'll send you a deal. You send it to them, and you can start working on that first flip.
Okay, sounds amazing. I think it's exactly that. I've seen a lot of people going through mentorship program, and I think you have like, there is this. I lost the name, but there is this curve, there is this graphic that shows, on like a mentorship program, how many people are actually going to take action versus the one that are going to have success and the one that are going to fail. And unfortunately, most people are not going to go through the entire course of action. And the one that do, most of them are going to like not apply exactly what you teach them. So they're paying you to get a blueprint, but they're going to tweak it somehow. And I saw that at a small scale. I never launched any course or anything like that, but I had people reaching out to me on social media and being like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Like, I don't know how to pull a list. So I'm telling them exactly step by step what to do. And then they're coming back a few weeks later, it's not working. And when I'm like, show me exactly what you did, they kind of like tweaked it in their own ways. And so the entire blueprint doesn't work anymore. So I think the way you're doing it, of being like basically giving them the guidelines and they can't really go out of this is the only way. Like, why do you want to reinvent the wheel if someone has already, developed the model, doing the trials and error? Because I don't want people to think that, right out of the gate, you were able to do all of that. It's like years and years of experience. There's probably some flips that you lost money on until you find really your perfect system that is duplicable and works today, right?
Exactly. Completely agree. And the less like variables that people have. So it's like so it's almost like, skipping to the jump and thinking for you, like if you were wanted to start like a wholesaling offer right now, it would be like, here's the list. Call them with this script. And then once you have it under contract, plug it into this calculator and I'll buy the house or sell the house for you. We'll split the profits, right? It's like just cutting out all the BS that they have to do. Because so many wholesaling courses are like you said, like, go buy this list, plug in this criteria into this software, download it, now parse the data and put it into Excel and do all this like crazy stuff and upload it to Alloware to do a tech, like blah, 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 blah. It's just like goes on forever. And there's like 100 steps. Somebody's going to mess up and then they're going to blame you that it doesn't work. It's like, cool. What if I set up Alloware for you with a list in it and you buy that? Save you all that bloody work so you literally can't do it wrong. So that's what we've done with Flip System, and it's worked amazingly well so far. Very, very high success rate. So it's been great.
All right. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like you have a big tech component in your offer at Flip System, because you basically build this entire program around a CRM that you build for your own turnkey business. So can you tell us a bit more about the tech aspect of everything?
Yeah, sure. So we've built a custom software that allows people to analyze deals, to kind of like track a deal throughout completion, track all the team members within that deal. So who is the property manager and realtor and contractor? I want to see a full deal analysis. I want to keep track of all the documents, all the notes, all that kind of stuff for the deal, and also manage it throughout completion. So like, cool, once we're under contract, I want you to email this and create this task and that kind of thing. Once you're under construction, I want the system to do X, Y, and Z. So every single stage of the deal, it fires off different automations and different tasks, just like some sort of CRM would, but then also has the additional analyzing component. And then now we're trying to figure out how to get all the new listings from the MLS every single day into the software, so people don't even need to go to Zillow and Redfin to look for deals anymore. They can just kind of refresh every single day and see a whole new slew of deals that came and were posted overnight.
Okay, great. It seems like you have a lot of new things in development. So can you tell me really quick, like what does your company looks like to this day? Like you told me you have approximately 30 teams members.
Yeah.
So there is really a whole infrastructure to really help those students succeed, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. So we have a whole customer success department, which is people that know a ton about real estate industry. A lot of them have worked at Martel Turnkey in the past. We have a whole entire tech team, director of technology, a bunch of coders that are also editing and upgrading the software, handling tickets, all that kind of stuff. And then we are slowly adding more and more coaches as well. So right now we have like one weekly group coaching call, but there's also a ton of other people that are in the program or that I know have personal relationships with that I want to bring them on to be coaches as well, to talk about different topics like legal and financing and accounting, and then general real estate, construction, all that kind of stuff. So the goal is to, make the company very large. So we have a ton of we have a ton of coaches that we could bring in, and they can all have, you know, it could be like a call a day about a different topic with some sort of leader within that topic is where we'd like to get to. So just give them as much support as we possibly can.
All right. Well, man, it's amazing, and I'm really amazed to see like what you built in just a few years. I've known you for a few years now, but seeing this transition from, you know, Martel Turnkey to what you're doing now, it's pretty impressive. I see this ClickFunnels on the shelf behind you, the ClickFunnels disc. So congrats on that. That's a huge achievement. Man, we have approximately 5 minutes left. Can you tell us, you know, I don't know if you have any parting words. Where can people find you? Like any key advice that you want to give to the audience?
Sure. I think the best place to reach out to me would be on Instagram. It's my last name and my first name, so Martel Antoine. You can go there, give me a follow. I'm most active on Instagram. If you want to learn more about Flip System, it's just flipsystem.com. If you are interested in turnkey rentals, you can go to martelturnkey.com as well. If you are too lazy to write down those links, just shoot me a message on Instagram and I'll get those sent over to you as well.
I will drop everything in the description below, so we have the short link to reach out to you. So yeah, any key advice, like looking back at all of this, any words that you would like leave the younger Antoine with?
I would say, like, my key main advice is to look at how much time you have, how much capital you have, and time, capital, and your knowledge or who you know. And look at those couple of things and figure out what, if you do want to get into real estate, figure out which strategy makes the most amount of sense with those resources. A lot of people try to get into ground up construction apartment buildings and they have 20 grand in the bank with a 500 credit score and they know nobody. They just immigrated here from France. And it's like, dude, I don't know how the hell you're going to do ground up construction. Like, why don't you start with wholesaling, or why don't you spend that money and fix your credit? So like, lay out all your resources, look at all the different investment strategies that you can do, Airbnb, turnkey fix and flips, retail fix and flips, wholesaling. What do all of those things require? And then find the one that matches your resources today. That's it. That's where I would begin. You can obviously always, like, once you're in the game, it's easy to meet other people that are in the game. So if you do wholesaling, it's easy to meet Airbnb people. If you're completely out of the game and you have nothing to offer, nothing to talk about, it's going to be really hard for you to get to where you want to. So my last parting words is just get into the game with whatever resources you have. Choose the right strategy that works today. You don't have to do it forever. Just get in the game, start making some money, and you can get to, you know, your dream outcome in the next 5 or 10 years.
All right. So to recap all of that, basically, like, just find a way to get started in the game. It doesn't matter really where you're at. You find your avenue, you stick to it. You're being very consistent, and you always lead with value.
100%. And thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. I think we provide a lot of value to the audience today. So thanks again, man. And I'm excited to see what your journey is going to look like in, you know, the coming month and the coming years. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
And hard and you aiming for the 7 figures. Hear from the experts who know how to deliver. Success stories, plenty advice. Time for you to rise. REI Tribe, real estate agents to investors. All my entrepreneurs, time for you to check this. Yoann Dorat, he's getting it started, man. From running businesses to digital marketing. Hey, REI Tribe. REI Tribe. Let's go.